Hi guys, Brant here, and welcome to a commentary video again. Today we're going to be having a little bit more of what I would consider like a rant video or of like a stream of thought video. I'm not going to have any sort of like bullet points or anything for this one like I sometimes do for my commentary videos. I'm going to be just talking from the chest here and talking about one of the more stressful and frustrating parts of the DBD content creation circle and things that I wish we were a little bit more tidy about, and how that affects us as a whole community. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So I think there's the general thing that I want to talk about in terms of the Dead by Daylight community content creation circle is that I feel like a lot of content creators in general are fairly irresponsible when it comes to their feelings and takes and presence with the game. And I feel like a lot of it comes to hurt us all around and kind of really perpetuates, that's the word I was looking for. It really perpetuates this cycle of entitlement and people hating the game. I'm sure you've watched plenty of content creators that have probably just the most off-the-wall worst takes that you could ever possibly imagine. I'm sure on the killer side of things, there's a certain 2 or 3 gamers that probably come to your mind that stream on Twitch that, you know, survivors can do no right, killers can do no wrong. Anytime a killer loses, especially them, it's always because of some BS item, BS map design, BS this, BS that. And essentially every time they lose, it's just the world was against them, RNG was against them, the game was against them, the map was against them, the players were against them. It was 4-man Swift. That's what did it. It was 4-man Swift on comms. That's why I lost, regardless if they check or not. If they can't check that, it's the skill-based matchmaking. The skill-based matchmaking did it. It was the MMR that did it. And MMR should be removed from the game, even though they can't actually go in and check their MMR. And that's just one side of the game too. Like, if anything, we've had more of a presence of survivor streamers, and survivor streamers also do this too. You've been in their streams. Every killer is boring. There are no killers in the game they actually do like. The only killers they actually enjoy facing are the ones that they can push around and bully, which usually constitutes like the bottom 3, bottom 5 characters in the game, and sometimes not even that. The people that, once again, it's kind of a reverse situation that, you know, survivors can only do good and killers can do no right. Even if a killer is, you know, very clearly spreading their hooks across all 12 hooks to across all 4 survivors, they're still tunneling to some extent because they're only focusing 2 people at a time, something like that. They always find something that the killer is doing wrong. And I feel like both of these takes and both of these feelings kind of lead to just this perpetual cycle of just entitlement and frustration and kind of this feeling that the game is always in a terrible place because they're essentially exaggerating the problems that the game has to make the blow to their egos not as bad. Because if they actually had to self-reflect and see, maybe I'm not playing the game as possibly good as I should be, or maybe I perhaps made some mistakes there, then that looks bad in front of their chats or in front of their YouTubes, and we can't have that because that leads to a loss of views or subscribers or whatever it happens to be. So we're just going to make it about the game, and unfortunately, a lot of people fall for this hook, line, and sinker, and the cycle continues because those people go into their games, regardless of the fact that they're themselves are content creators, not with the same attitude that I can do no wrong, but the game can do no right. I think particularly what I wanted to talk about with this and what I wanted to focus on with this is how that makes life harder for everyone else who tries to see the game from like a median perspective, something that is the average, something that is as close to truth as possible. People go, oh well, there's problems with killer, but there's also some really strong things about killer. There's some strong things about survivor, there's some really bad stuff about survivor. There's some maps that are really strong and some maps that are actually fine. People that try to see the game as it is, these kind of like cults of personality that try to essentially excuse away all of their mistakes and all of their problems, all their frustrations as something that's objective, make the game and the community at large conversely harder just by having these really extreme and awful opinions, because even though these things are obviously not true and they're exaggerating them for the sake to cover their own ass, essentially, people take them as gospel, people take them as truth. And like I said, cult of personality, a lot of these people that have these thoughts and feelings are very charismatic and very loud, and a lot of people listen to those people even if what they're saying is not necessarily true. But this had an adverse effect that the players and content creators that are out there that are trying more to see the game as it is and try to give the game a fair cut, give the community a fair cut, and try to see things as truthful and down the middle as possible, those people end up having a really bad time because they're constantly being bombarded by these people that have been taught by their bigger content creators that it's okay to just blame the game every single time you lose. It's always the game's fault. It's always the 4-man Swift's fault. It's always something's fault. It's never my fault. And that attitude carries over to chastise people who probably actually have a better view of what the game actually is than anybody else does, but they're just going to be put down because they're not playing to whatever bias side that you're trying to talk about. And even furthermore, I think a thing that's not really talked about a lot of this, and not even just the terms of just being like, harassed or talked down to or condescended to or having very, very heated arguments, is just the anxiety of like trying to find out what the truth is and to find out, is this thing actually overpowered or is this thing not overpowered? The anxiety of trying to figure that out and trying to create that median opinion and try to find out what the truth is always more anxiety ridden, because you have essentially two walls of very, very biased and brainwashed forces that have been irresponsibly made that way by very aggressively immature content creators, making it very, very hard for you to come up with like, what would consider to be quote unquote the right opinion, because you're constantly being influenced or looked down upon by both sides. And there's a lot of situations in Dead by Daylight where you truly can't make everybody happy. But even that quest to find what potentially is the closest to the truth about, is something overpowered, is something not, is something problematic, or is something not, even if you do a lot of tests, I'm sure you've seen Hens, Otts, so many different content creators do a lot of tests, like hard testing, to try and figure out, is this thing broken, is it not? And if you go down into their Twitter comments or whatever happens to be the post that they made, there's tons of people lambasting them, tons of people giving them a lot of shit for like seemingly no reason, when they're literally going into the game and doing tests and trying to provide hard data as to, should this thing be fixed? Should this thing remain the same way it is? And people still blast them, and still people still give them a hard time. And I think it's that like really, really hostile environment. I think it's the word I really want to capitalize on here. And it's like that really, really hostile environment is just like not a very, very comfortable or happy place to be. Like it feels like, especially the reason this came into my mind is obviously we have a new chapter coming, which means we have new perks, new character with the unknown, new map. So a lot of people are wanting like the lowdown on like, is this character strong? Is this character weak? Is this part of this kit problematic? Is it not? Are the perks problematic? Or are they not problematic? There's a lot of questions floating around right now, and people want those answers as soon as possible. And it feels like, it feels really threatening. I think that's the best word for it. It feels really, really threatening, because the people that if I say that the unknown is fairly good, if you put a lot of effort into him, which is what I feel, he's a very, very fun character, but he's going to take a lot of effort to be good, a la something kind of like Larry, where it's not going to be just, you don't just load up as the character and you get a lot of value. There's just certain camps you're just automatically going to irritate and make angry just by saying that statement. There are a lot of people that pick up the character and either don't have the willingness to learn his deeper aspects, or people that I believe he's already too OP on the survivor end of things, and you saying, oh, he's only good instead of OP will piss them off. Like there's just so many people you make angry just by making that statement, and so frustrated just by making this statement. But really what's happening is it's just kind of like this big echo of like the content creator space. Your aggressively biased survivor mainstreamer already hates the character, already thinks he's not fun to face, already thinks he's like a high AS tier or something like that, and just despises the character regardless of if that's the truth or not. So there's just going to be legions of fans and community members that are just going to say that and perpetuate that belief, no matter if it's true or not, everywhere. And then you're going to have the killer mains who think that he's really underpowered. He needs like 12 buffs to be good. And, the survivor, it's just so easy for survivors to bully this character. And those people are going to perpetuate that to their community. And then their community is going to go around and bully anybody who thinks that. So it just makes making thoughts and feelings and opinions about characters where you're trying to derive as much truth as possible really, really nerve-wracking, because it just feels like no matter what you do, there's going to be groups of people that are just absolutely angry. And I think the kind of the elephant in the room with this, which is kind of something that I more experience, and I'm sure a lot of other content creators experience in this zone where you're not necessarily super biased or one side or the other, is that like it feels like you kind of end up like babysitting people, and you feel like you're having to like talk people down all the time, which gets really, really emotionally draining. If somebody comes in during the PTB for the unknown and they're like, the unknown's OP, he's like A+ tier and he's going to be rolling people. And I go, first off, character hasn't even been out technically. Character's still in PTB, so this version of the character will not hit live. No, even if the changes are small versus big, this is not the version of the character that will be live. So you don't know that for sure. And at the this was day of PTB, like the PTB release, so the character hadn't even been out 6 hours, and people were saying he's like A+ tier. There's no way you can know that. There's no way you can know that. There's no way anybody can know that. You can make a best guess about, it seems like that ability's pretty good, but like, you don't know for sure. So the people who say with their whole chest and objectively, it feels like you like, it there falls on my responsibility to be like, whoa, chillax. Whoa, relax a little. Stop, think. Character hasn't even been 6 hours yet. Character's not even technically out and won't be for a while. So maybe hold off on such a poignant objective, quote unquote, objective judgment, like saying he's A+ tier. Or the opposite, people saying he was dog and he was too buggy to function correctly, to be any sort of good. Like, I feel like I'm just constantly having to talk people down from just like really super intense statements that they pretend are objective and are not. And usually when people make those super intense, quote unquote, objective statements, I can track them back to a content creator or two who was a little too off the cuff with their statements and kind of just didn't understand the responsibility you have when you're a content creator and you have an audience to, be like, okay, well, this is how it feels. This is how it is. I was running into a lot of situations when I first started playing Unknown this week that I was like, I don't get how this works. This seems really weird because it is kind of odd that like direct shots hinder, but only the bubble does the weak injured thing. It was just weird to figure out at first. And I was like, this feels really clunky and odd. And I was saying the keyword feel. It feels, right? And even then in that situation, there were a lot of people in my chat who were saying that I was being too harsh on the character and I was being too rough on them. And I just had to reiterate, I'm like, this is only my first or second game with them. These are just first impressions. These are how I feel playing them. And lo and behold, I kept playing them throughout the day and I started going for really fun bounce shots. And I was like, whoa. I started like literally laughing while playing the character. I was having such a good time. So like, what I was like feeling at the time, and I emphasized was a feeling, I ended up getting used to. That's why I emphasized that they were just feelings and not fact, not something that's objective. And so many other content creators in that situation phrase those things as objective feelings and objective problems, and it just gets really frustrating. There's no other way to put it. It just gets really, really frustrating because like I said, it just boils down to that. I feel like, once again, those same people that were like, you're being too harsh and were like, panicking, trying to like almost toxically positive bias me out of that situation are probably, predisposed to content creators doing that, jumping the gun and stating their aggressive in the moment feelings as objective facts. So they probably felt the need to step in, and it created an awkward situation between me and them. Because we all feel like, we have to temper the extreme feelings of people who, for the most part, are adults and should know the difference between I feel this way and it is this way. Is this objectively what's happening, or is this subjectively how I'm feeling? And be able to communicate that. And when these people have large audiences that will parrot what they say, they gotta be a little bit more careful about that phrasing and what they do with that, because it goes to harm the community as a whole. It really does, and it puts the people in the middle who are either A, already aware of that, or B, trying to be more careful and aware of that difference between objectivity and subjectivity. It makes their lives way, way harder because they now have to essentially, carry that responsibility for other people and take the brunt of that from other people, which sucks. It sucks to always be living in that anxiety that you're going to agitate and upset other people, regardless of the fact that you're trying to be as fair as possible. Like, it just sucks, and it just is not a good situation. And it's, like I keep saying throughout this video, perpetuated by community figures, content creators that are irresponsible with their voice. And it just sucks, and it's not something that's ever going to be better. That's why it's more of a rant. It's not something that's ever going to change. It's just something that I just kind of dislike about the content creation space and the community around it, in terms of Dead by Daylight, because people are way too easy to jump the gun and mix up subjective feelings with objective feelings way too much, and don't know how to separate those. But it infects the community, and those people carry those feelings into other places, and it's just a big ick. And I just wish content creators were a little bit more careful with saying something was their subjective feelings instead of just claiming everything was objective and everything was the way it is when it's just how they feel. I don't know. Do you guys feel like this is a problem in the community, that you feel like too many content creators mix their subjective feelings with objective feelings? Or do you think it's just kind of like a non-issue and I'm just worried about nothing? Let me know down in the comments below. That's it for today's video, friends. Thank you so much for watching, but I do upload daily, so I will see you tomorrow. But if I do not, I will see you when I see you. Bye.